No matter how old you are, 50, 60, or 70, there is one thing that will always remain relevant. Either money works for you, or you work for money. Now imagine this statistic. 7 out of 10 Americans of retirement age today rely on Social Security as their primary source of income. This is a reality that could have been different if people had once known what I'm about to tell you. Financial freedom is not a privilege for the young or the chosen. It is a skill, it is a strategy, it is discipline, and most importantly, it is a decision. In this video, I will share with you 7 proven strategies that not only brought me peace in turbulent times, but also gave me real power over my life. Strategies that work regardless of how old you are or where you're starting from. And you know what? The best part comes at the end. Together, we'll develop a personal, practical financial plan for you for the week. Yes, with specific actions you can start taking today. But right now, I want you to think about a simple question. Do you control your money, or does it control you? When I was young, I thought the most important thing in life was to find a good job, a stable one with health insurance and a pension plan. And you know, many of us live that way. 40 years at work, 40 hours a week, only to end up with 40% of what was never enough to begin with. All of it, in the hope of a peaceful retirement. But here's the truth that was revealed to me when I was 25. It doesn't matter how much you earn. What matters is what you do with it. I remember my first meeting with Earl Schaff, my mentor. He looked at my financial situation and asked, "Jim, have you ever saved even 10 cents from every dollar?" I answered, "No, Earl, I haven't." And he just smiled and said, "That's where we'll start." That was the first principle. Learn to manage even a little if you want to have more. I was 25 and I was broke. Completely. In debt with no prospects, no plan. But from the moment I started learning financial literacy, not from newspapers, but from philosophy, everything began to change. Not immediately, but over time. Because wealth doesn't appear by accident. Wealth is the result of the right habits and the right mindset. See the paradox? People believe financial well-being is about income. If only I earned more, they say. But no. True financial well-being is a matter of decisions, a matter of discipline, a matter of long-term thinking. You can have $1 million and lose it within a year. Or you can have a modest income and build a legacy. I've met people who earned very little but had freedom. Why? They lived below their means. They invested in knowledge. They didn't chase instant gratification. They built brick by brick. And you can do the same. It doesn't matter how old you are. What matters is the decision you make today. One man once told me, "Jim, I'm already 60, it's too late to start." And I answered, "When is the best time to plant a tree?" 20 years ago. And the next best time? Today. Because today is a new start. It's a chance. It's a moment of truth. And if you take responsibility for your money today, you can change not only your financial future, but your inner state. From fear to confidence, from lack to abundance, from uncertainty to wisdom. The 7 strategies we'll explore next, they're not just tips from books. They're what I've lived, what I've seen in the lives of thousands of people. And each one starts with a simple yet profound question. Are you the master of your finances or a guest in your own bank account? Remember, money is a servant, but a very dangerous master. Learn to manage it, and it will serve you for life. Otherwise, you'll serve it day by day, paycheck by paycheck. And that's not the life for you. Right now, this is the moment to take out a notebook. Because we're not just going to talk about financial freedom. We're going to create an action strategy for you at the end of this video. Not theory, a plan, and I want you to be ready. Let's start with the first strategy my mentor once explained to me. Learn to live on 70% of your income. Not 100. And definitely not 110 like most people do. This habit became my starting point. It's simple, yet powerful. At the time, I was earning very little, and I thought, I'm barely getting by as it is. How can I possibly save anything? But Earl said, if you can't live on 90% of your income, you won't be able to live on 1,000% either. That was a shock, and it was true. Financial management is a matter of self-discipline, not math. And when you start keeping 70% for yourself and dividing the rest between education, investments, and charity, not only does order come into your life, self-respect does too. You no longer spend every dollar as if it's your last. You begin to think like a builder, not a consumer. You lay a foundation. So 70% for living, 10% for investing in yourself, books, courses, knowledge, 10% for capital that works for you, and another 10% for charity, because once you learn to give, you open a channel to receive. This is not just a financial strategy, it's a life philosophy. The second strategy, save and grow. Don't just stash money under a mattress, grow it. Money needs to work. If it's not working, it's not money, it's just paper. And I've always said it doesn't matter how much you save. What matters is how disciplined you are about it. Because discipline is the bridge between goals and results. I remember once I was late on a bill payment. It wasn't a big bill, but it hit me so hard that I told myself, enough. From now on, I manage money, not the other way around. And I started saving not when something was left over, but as soon as I received income. Automatically, systematically. Because you know what's best about automatic saving? It's non-negotiable. You just do it, like brushing your teeth, no discussion. And the third strategy, study money like your life depends on it, because it does. In school, they didn't teach us what compound interest is. They didn't teach us that a credit card is not money. They didn't teach us that the greatest enemy of financial freedom is not lack of money. It's lack of knowledge. But you can learn at any age. Today, it doesn't matter if you're 50, 60, or 80. What matters is whether you're willing to learn. I started reading everything I could find about money, about investing, about taxes, about insurance, about how wealthy people think. Not to become a financial expert, but to stop being a financial victim. And I recommend the same to you. One new lesson per week, one financial term, one principle. These are simple things, but they change everything. As my mentor used to say, one of the worst conditions is not poverty, it's financial helplessness. That's where the power lies. You can take responsibility for your financial state right now. You can learn, you can change, and when you change, everything around you changes. Your decisions become sharper, your spending wiser, your opportunities greater. Why? Because you no longer react, you lead. Ask yourself this, if every dollar were a worker, would you hire it? Or would you let it slack off, get wasted on trivialities, impulsive buys, mindless entertainment? Or would you give it a task, a purpose, a plan? You see, money is like an army. It's either disciplined or it rebels. And you are the commander-in-chief. So the first 3 steps are simple, but defining. Live on less than you earn, save and grow, and learn something new about finance every week. That's the path. That's the beginning of freedom. And one more thing, start today. Not on Monday, not after the next pension recalculation. Today. Grab a pen and write this down. What is your monthly income? How much is 70%? How much is 10%? And then, take action. Because without action, there is no result. As I love to say, it's better to start small than not to start at all. The fourth strategy, and this one is a game changer, is to plan your money before it leaves you. I remember the moment I finally learned how to create a monthly financial plan, and it wasn't some complicated 10-page budget. Number it was a simple list: income, expenses, remainder, and most importantly, a purpose. Where will every dollar go? Because if you don't tell it where to go, it'll find its own way to disappear. Financial freedom doesn't begin with a big inheritance or a lottery win. It begins with a notebook, a pen, and a habit. Before a new month began, I would sit down and write, here's what's coming in, here's where it's going, and here's what I'm investing. It was my way of telling money, I'm in charge now. You may ask, what if the income is unstable? The answer is simple, plan even for the unstable. Because as I always said, a bad plan is better than no plan. An unstable income isn't an excuse. It's a call for even greater responsibility. Make a minimal projection, determine a survival baseline, and work with it. And when more comes in, don't spend it right away. Make the surplus work for you. Everything that goes unplanned sinks into emotions. Think about it. How many times have you made a spontaneous purchase and regretted it later? That's not a financial decision. That's an emotional reaction. But the moment you start planning, you start acting based on goals, not impulses. That is financial maturity. The fifth strategy, and one of my favorites, is to create assets, not just save money. Because money by itself doesn't give freedom. It must be turned into something that works without you. My whole life I've said, don't work just for money, make money work for you. And here's the big trap. Many think, well, I'm not an investor. I don't have enough to buy or invest in anything. But an asset isn't always about stocks or real estate. An asset is anything that brings you income or value over time. Skills can be an asset, a small business, an asset, even a well-written book that's read for years and it is an asset. I started with buying books and turning them into knowledge, knowledge into ideas, and ideas into products. Then I learned to invest in teaching others. Teaching created workshops, workshops created income, income became capital, and again into assets. That's the cycle of power. You can start simple, one step, and you're in the game. Think, what skill do you already have that can be turned into income? What do you know? What do you own? Who needs your experience? How can you create an additional stream? See, at an older age, you have one advantage, experience. And if you structure it, it becomes an asset. Now, one of my favorite quotes, rich people look for opportunities, poor people look for excuses. And I know that may sound harsh, but it's the truth. While someone says, I'm too old to start a new business, another opens an online store from home. While one puts $50 in an envelope, another invests it in a book that changes their mindset and earns thousands. The difference isn't in age. The difference is in mindset. And one more thing, don't be afraid to lose. Many people fear investing because there's risk. But remember, the biggest risk is doing nothing. Inflation eats your savings. Life gets more expensive. And if you're not growing, you're actually losing. So smart risk is not a problem. It's a required part of growth. So what do we have so far? We're not just saving anymore. We're planning. We're not just cutting expenses. We're creating assets. We're not waiting for miracles. We're building our financial foundation. And that's the path to true stability. Look at your situation. Think, what among what you already have could become an asset? Maybe you have a spare room. It could generate income. Maybe you have time, and you could teach others what you know. Don't limit yourself to traditional paths. Wealth is creativity, it's strategy, and it's the constant question, how can I turn time and knowledge into income? Remember, it's not about how much you have right now, it's about what you do with it. The sixth strategy, and it transforms not just your money, but your relationship with yourself, is keeping personal financial records. Let me tell you plainly, if you don't track your finances, you're not in control of your life, period. There was a time I lived by feel. It seemed like I still had money, as long as I could buy a coffee. But that's not a financial decision. It's a blind reaction. My mentor asked me, Jim, how much did you spend on food last month? I said, I don't know, but I don't think it was much. He smiled and said, show me the numbers. And that's when I realized, I think means I don't know. And I don't know means I'm not in control. Since then, I started writing everything down, first in a notebook, then on cards, later in a simple spreadsheet, and something changed, not in the money, in me. I started seeing where my unnoticed expenses were going. I saw how much I actually earned, how much I spent on things that didn't matter, and most importantly, I felt in control again. And from control comes peace. Tracking is your financial consciousness. It's a mirror you may not always enjoy looking into, but in it lies the truth. And that truth makes you stronger. So my advice to you is, grab a notebook or open a file and start today. Write down how much money came in this month, how much went out, where, what's left, and most importantly, what does that tell you about your habits? Because money doesn't lie. It clearly shows what you truly value. You might say personal growth is important, but if your records show $0 spent on books and $300 on cafes, the reality is different. That's why tracking isn't just about controlling expenses. It's about being conscious of your life. But let's move on. The final seventh strategy, the deepest one, is to think in terms of legacy. Instead of asking, how much will I earn, ask yourself a different question. What will I leave behind? Financial well-being isn't just about a comfortable retirement. It's about the mark you leave. What kind of money culture are you passing on to your children? What spending philosophy do your grandchildren see in you? What saving, investing, and responsibility habits will they inherit or not? I know many people think, I don't have much to leave behind. But you don't have to leave just a bank account. You can leave a system, an example, a principle. If your kids know you always lived responsibly, invested in knowledge, avoided debt, and thought strategically, they've already inherited something powerful, and that legacy will last longer than any check. I remember a story. An older man, a farmer, he didn't have a large estate, but he had records, journals, decades worth. He tracked harvests, expenses, profits. And when his children saw this, they saw a system. They saw that their father wasn't just a laborer, but a thinker, a planner, an entrepreneur. And that legacy changed their lives. Think big. Not just, how do I get through this month? But, how do I build a philosophy that will outlive me? As I once said, success isn't what you get, it's who you become. And when you become a financially responsible person, you become an example. And that's worth more than any amount of money. True wealth isn't just in the bank, it's in the heart, in discipline, in wisdom, in the ability to say, I didn't just spend, I created. I didn't just consume, I built. I didn't just live. I left a path for others to follow. And you know the best part? It doesn't take millions. It takes decisions, small, daily, consistent ones, to calculate, to save, to preserve, to give, to teach. That's the formula. So let's draw the line. We've walked through 7 strategies, from expense control to planning, from investing in yourself to building assets, from habits to legacy. And now I want you to take one more step. Apply them, because knowledge without action is just intellect, but knowledge with action is power. And now, it's time for action. You know what separates those who just listen from those who change their lives? Reflection and decision. Because you can watch hundreds of videos, read dozens of books, and still stay in the same place. Or you can pause, look in the mirror, and honestly ask, where am I right now, and what am I ready to change? I invite you to do exactly that, right now. Find a quiet moment. Grab a notebook, a sheet of paper, or your phone, and allow yourself an honest conversation with yourself. We'll go through a short assessment, 10 areas of your financial life, each with a simple question. Your task, rate yourself from 1 to 10. Remember, 1 means, I completely fail at this. 10 means, I do this consistently and confidently. This isn't a score from someone else. It's not criticism. It's your financial mirror, and it will help you see where your strength lies and where you need a plan. Write down your ratings, just in a row, 7, 5, 2, 4, 8. Don't try to be perfect. Be honest, because honesty is the first step to change. Here we go. How confidently do you manage your monthly expenses? How regularly do you automatically set aside part of your income without overthinking it? How often do you invest in your financial literacy? How clearly do you understand where your money goes each week? How detailed is your income and expense plan for the month? Do you have at least one asset that brings income independently of your job? Do you have an emergency fund, at least enough for 3 months of living? How free are you from debt and credit obligations? How often do you talk openly and calmly about money with your family? How confident are you that you are passing on a financial culture to the next generation? Now look at your list. Which area has the lowest score? That's your weak point, but also your greatest opportunity, because by changing that, you change the whole system. Like a mechanism, if one gear doesn't work, everything stops. But if you fix it, the whole thing starts to move. So, here's your assignment for the week. Focus on that one area and make a simple action plan. For example, if it's tracking expenses, write down every purchase each evening. If it's investing in yourself, pick one book and read for 20 minutes daily. If it's saving, set up an automatic transfer of 10% from every income. If it's talking with family, schedule an open financial conversation. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Create it. I recommend write down 3 actions you'll take daily.